for me, so much of my life is involved in love and spirituality and all these things that it's almost like roughage or some kind of contrast that I crave for entertainment.
Yeah, that sounds really fun. It sounds like it's a way for you to play, right? That idea that we do something just for the enjoyment. It doesn't have to inform your
Exactly.
spiritual work or your practice. It can just be the roughage.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you have had a whole journey to arrive at the place where you are now. And I'd love for us just to go back in time a little bit together and to talk about how you got into this work. I know that you have some history with addiction. I know that in many ways that was your doorway into the person that you've become now. Can you give us some insight and part of your
Yeah.
story?
Yeah. I grew up in a family that was, I think, these days very common in the sense that the people in the family that I was born into had not done a lot of inner work, and there was a lot of trauma. My mom came from a family with a very abusive father who was alcoholic. Um, and I think that I was in this family by choice in a way. I know that that sounds funny, but it's like they say that we choose our parents. And I kind of resonate with that, this idea that our soul has some mission in this life and something to learn and some way to grow. And yeah, so I choose to be born in this family where there was a lot of unhappiness and there was plenty of kind of material comfort. Um, we weren't rich, but we were very privileged and kind of middle class. So the suffering wasn't there, but just like a lot of internal suffering. And I had three older brothers, and all of them, in one way or another, got into chemical dependency. And so when I was a kid, yeah, I got into drugs and alcohol and, um, was kind of a juvenile delinquent, you could say. And was just fortunate enough to actually get sober in the 12 steps when I was still in high school. And that was such a blessing because that was like my letter from Hogwarts or something, where I discovered that I was a spiritual person that just really needed to have this spirituality in my life
Mm.
to feel complete.
Yeah. I love what you just said there about spirituality being something that makes you feel complete. And I feel like something that I really appreciate that you've spoken about many times in different trainings and things that I've taken with you is this idea that we're a soul in a role with a God-sized whole. And and that so much of what so many of us are seeking or feeling a longing for is actually this connection to our own soul, right? Like yoga teaches us that like we have that personal soul, but then also that soul that is infinite and whatever we want to call it, that indescribable thing that you could call God or goddess or source or whatever you want to call it, right? But it seems like you found that at that time in a way that really worked for you personally.
Yeah, well, I found it's like I found the problem. Like it, I want to say I found the solution, but almost 40 years later, I feel like I'm still seeking that solution,
Yeah.
but was introduced to that problem just like you said it, the soul in a role with a god-sized hole. It's so funny to hear somebody else say it. But yeah, that's the thing, is that it's the basic teaching of yoga, but it's also, the god-sized whole is the piece that I take from that 12-step philosophy, um, where there's this basic sense of incompleteness in many of us. And I think of it as a blessing, not a curse. It leads us to a lot of really bad choices a lot of times until we find spirituality, but a blessing if it leads us into a situation where we learn this teaching.
Yeah.
And that, that there's for many of us, a superficial life is not an option. And this might be the case for some of your listeners, where sometimes it's because of trauma, sometimes it's because of just some way that we're born or wired, or neurodivergence, or life circumstance. But we're either going to find some way to live in wisdom, or we're really going to suffer and like just not even make it.
Yeah.
And there are people that can just have very superficial lives, and I'm envious of them sometimes. But that's that's not me. I don't think it's you either. Um, yeah, I feel very grateful. Like all of the tools and all of the solutions and all of the answers, I'm very grateful for. But I'm most grateful for the question to begin with, of just being even introduced to that problem.
Absolutely. I feel, I've done a lot of healing work myself, and I've experienced a tremendous amount of trauma and also turned that into something really beautiful. And I know you have too. And I know the women listening to that are taking that same like joyful ride. And I may sound funny to call it a joyful ride, but the journey of waking up and seeing that you can ask a question, or that you could get support, or that you don't need to look like, for me, I have a background in eating disorders, which is a form of addiction. And like I didn't need to look for food for that comfort anymore, because I could find it within myself. Or you don't need to look for it inside of a bottle of wine or whatever it is, or a box of Oreos. Like there's a way to find it someplace else. And then when you start to find it someplace else, that sense of self and safety and peace and connection to something bigger than you, I feel like it really opens up all kinds of new doors.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I was just talking about that this morning, that especially within the 12-step world, in other spiritual communities and healing communities too, but there's something so valuable about just like connecting to others that also suffer, to like normalize it.
Hmm.
Like in the case of a 12-step situation, you're in a room with all of these other people from different walks of life that are all as crazy as you are. And you know these days, because we have these online 12-step meetings, I'm still pretty involved in 12-step work. um, you'll be in a virtual room with like 300 people.
Mm.
300 people, none of them are going to be shocked by you sharing your very craziest thought or craziest behavior. Because look, you know, um, full disclosure, I had a hard week with my family a week ago, and I ate night cereal twice. Night cereal.
What is night cereal?
Like
Like you eat it
eating a
at
bowl of
night
cereal at night after
for
the kids go
comfort.
to.
Yeah. Like I don't need this. This is an emotional support tool right now.
I mean, I shouldn't ever eat cereal. Cereal is just like never even supposed to be a part of my life. I ate it two nights in a row.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that also, and not judge ourselves or not feel like we're broken, or not, it
Mhm.
can be a silly thing. It's funny to talk about it now, but sometimes that night cereal is making a bad intimacy choice, or that night cereal is turning to like a drug or alcohol or something even more self-harming.
Mhm.
And to just understand that, you know this is a 12-step thing, but I think it's for any really bona fide spirituality. What we're looking for is progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
and that like we're growing and we're healing, and that, but it's not going to be something that just happens, but
Yeah.
that, and then along the way to be able to love ourselves in that. And
Mm-hmm.
we get that from being connected to each other.
Yeah, I think that that level of honesty that you're seeing in the 12 steps realm is so rare. And I feel like I get to see it in the when I hold group spaces because we're all doing really deep inner work and I'm facilitating that. And so people are sharing their truthiest truth. But we don't often find that outside of like an addiction recovery community of some variety or like a group therapy environment where we can just say the thing that we're scared for people to hear. And
Yeah,
then when we can say that and other people don't fall out of their chair or turn away from us and they're just like, oh, cool, you're human too.
yeah,
It actually makes it okay for us to turn that in and say, like, I ate the night cereal, or like, I'm having a really hard time with one of my kids right now, and I ate some M&Ms yesterday, and I was like, I am comfort eating M&Ms right now. Like that's what I'm doing. I'm fully aware of this choice.
yeah,
And I'm also going to enjoy the fuck out of these M&Ms right now with their food dye because it's just feeling good in the moment.
yeah, 100%.
Mm. So I love Ram Dass. Oh my goodness, the wisdom of Ram Dass. And I feel like I've heard you talk about in that like teenage recovery, when did Ram Dass come into your world? Because wasn't Be Here Now like a really big part of the
Yes,
introduction to yoga for you or
it was the introduction of yoga to me. I must have been 18 by then, 17 or 18. And yeah, my mom was actually dying of cancer,
hmm.
and I was newly sober, clean and sober. And somebody in my AA group, another one of the young people, gave me or lent me a copy of Be Here Now, which is, a great book if people aren't familiar with it.